goes. Because for some reason I'm not allowed to save them directly to my phone anymore, which means I have to do it twice. It's fine. So I wanted to jump on here really quick to talk a little bit about the reel that I just made, which was 5 quick steps for better segs. I really love the way that TikTok censorship has opened up a whole new realm of language where we get to talk about sex as eggs and segs and all of the lovely euphemisms and kitchen metaphors and analogies that come with that. And I just wanted to jump on here to talk about this because all of this information I went over in the Sexual Sovereignty Play Shop that I did a couple months back, which the recording is live on Patreon. If you're a member, for only $5, you can get that recording and absorb all of the information that was in there. But it comes to my attention that it is harder to accomplish these things. Oh, thank you, Yaz. I love it. Were you an inspiration of mine? You know you were. So, like, short hair king over here. Anyway, compliments aside, it is really, really important for people to understand the 5 elements that I really hit on in the reel that I shared today are pretty much the 5 most important things that I pulled out of that Sexual Sovereignty Play Shop that people struggle the most with. And number 1, the slowing down part, is probably the hardest one. I know maybe you're thinking that the suspending social scripts is the hardest, but it's actually not, even though that's the programming and maybe that's where you experience a lot of resistance. If you slow down effectively, everything else gets easier. So I started with number 1 being slow the fuck down because it's literally the most important one and it's the one that we do like the least well. We're not trained somatically to go slowly. Capitalism is a series of cattle prods that are just electrocuting you into a level of productivity that is unnatural, a level of productivity that is unsustainable, and doesn't allow for the boredom that really brings inspiration. And as creative people, as artists, whether you identify as an artist or not, you're a creative person. And if you're experiencing dissatisfaction in your erotic life or in your sexual life or in your, in really any realm, a lot of times it's coming from a lack of authenticity. And when are we being not authentic? Well, when we're in some kind of performance mode, right? When we're in autopilot, when we are not thinking consciously and making an intentional choice. Yesterday, I hosted the Body Euphoria Ecstatic Dance event, which I was really excited that everybody enjoyed it so much. People were able to have intimate experiences that were just in their own body and also being able to have engaging experiences with the community, dancing and sharing movement and being inspired by each other's movement. And I kept giving the invitation to slow down. And I would notice people sort of struggling with that. Even my own body struggling with that, right? Like when we go to start to dance, when you hear the music, the first movement that you make is not the movement that's actually genuine. The first movement that you go to make is the movement you think you should make. So if you hold back, when you sit in your body and you experience music, and you feel like, oh, I think I want to move like this, but then you say, you know what? Let me wait. Let me not act on that. Let me wait. Is that the true impulse? And you sit and you quiet and you breathe. And then you see what is the true impulse, right? And it usually comes 2 or 3 suggestions, ideas after that. And the sad thing is that often we're so worried about being awkward or worried about appearing to be smooth or suave or like hot to an intimate partner that we fail to slow down enough to actually allow the organic and genuine, authentic impulses of our body's desires to rise to the surface. So instead, you're acting on desires that were just you being hijacked into things you thought you should do, right? Which is the place where these social scripts come in, where they infiltrate and in the areas of unawareness where they persist. I had a lover a couple months back get really frustrated with me and make the comment, why do you always have to bring gender into the bedroom? Like, why do you have to do that? That's like so horrible. And what this person was failing to realize was that as a queer person, my desires don't fall in line with cis hetero scripts. So this person thought I was bringing gender into the bedroom, and what I was actually doing was reflecting back to them that their behaviors were highly gendered and scripted, and that they weren't aware that they were acting out these scripts instead of actually being aware of witnessing my body and my sensation and my energy level and staying with me and making autonomous choices to continue in a direction that is self-directed. I mean, we're inventing it, we are creating it. We're not just going by what we think we should do or what we think sex is. That's probably my least favorite definition. Yaz said, love the invitation to wait for a few suggestions for the sense of performance to subside and move from a place without social pressure. Thank you for describing that so succinctly. That's really it, right? It's like the first impulse is probably your anxiety talking. Probably the first impulse, if it's not your anxiety talking, it might be your trauma talking even. There have been situations even in my experience where the first thing I thought of were things that were good in previous partnerships or previous scenarios, and that jumping to those things really failed to take into account and consideration the person who I am right now and the person that I'm with right now. And so even going from a place of like, oh yeah, I know these are my kinks, blah, 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 blah. They're not going to be the same with every single person. They're not going to be the same with every single scenario, even if it is the same person. And your body changes over time, changes depending on what you've been through, how much sleep you've gotten, if you've eaten recently, who you're with. Like, I love the way in which different partners will enable me to discover new and different kinks. Like, genuinely, I was never really into feet until I met somebody who was really into it and was like, I'm curious, like, I sort of want to show you, like, how I receive pleasure from this. And I was like, that's curious. I don't know. I would like to understand. So I would like to engage in that, and you can show me, and these are the boundaries and whatnot. And what I think is really important to understand about your sexuality and your eroticism is that it can change. It will change. It's okay that it changes, and it's even good. Why is it good? Because everything about you changes. There is no such thing as progress. There is only accumulation. So your sexuality, your gender, everything will evolve, and that's perfectly fine. It doesn't invalidate anything that came before or anything that comes after. Your kinks don't justify any trauma you've ever had, and they're not coming just sourced from your trauma, right? So it's okay to allow things to evolve, to be curious about things, and to inquire. We learn how to desire by observing other desirable bodies and other people desiring. That's literally it. So let me repeat this. You learn how to desire based off of the social behavior of people around you desiring. You witness them desiring, and you internalize that, and you repeat that desire. Let me give you an example. I live in the US, right? I live in the East Coast, and I grew up socialized as a female, which means that my chest was highly sexualized. This has never been an erogenous zone for me. Not ever. Literally never. So it has always been a deep source of confusion, and I've always felt like, in my younger years, I was trying to figure out, like, how do I make this hot? I was told that this was going to be sexy. I'm not, like, enjoying this at all. It's in fact so boring. I would think of numbers in my head. That's how boring it is. And I kept trying to convince myself that I could get into pleasure in this way because this was supposed to be a sexual organ. But for me, it wasn't. Why did I believe that? Because the compulsorily heterosexual narrative of my country, of the US, because I don't want to make an assumption thinking you're from there too, is that this should be or has to be a sexual organ, when in fact it was not for my biology. And you know what would have been really helpful? Having a sex ed program that instead of basing everything on the brick and mortar of blame and shame, decided to actually encourage self-pleasure, masturbation, exploration, and just sense labs, sensory laboratory, just looking, doing an experiment. You don't have to like it, but what's happening? Are you observing? Are you paying attention? Are you engaged at all? Those kinds of directives and cues would have been life affirming for me. I might have discovered sooner that these are never going to be hot for me. They're not. They might tow a truck. They might feed a baby. But you know what they're not going to do? They're not going to get me wet. Let's move on, right? Like, let's stop. And until I was able to move past the should, I didn't explore things that actually brought me pleasure. And this is just a narrative that is entirely too true for I don't even know how many people, right? My son was 8 years old when I actually had my first orgasm with another human being, which means I had to have a lot of bad sex, give birth, ruin several relationships because I couldn't be honest about what I was experiencing, with my gender and sexuality and all of those things. When if I had just had adequate sex ed, I might have been coming the whole time. I might have been having a great time since the jump. Right? But we don't get to these places if we don't give ourselves permission to do these experiments, to become interested and curious about what is genuine. What do we really like? Not just what do we tolerate? What do we crave? What is going to be satisfying? What is going to be so fulfilling that you can't think about anything else? That once you hit it, you're like, oh my God, it breaks your whole world open. You're telling everybody you know. I want you to be able to have that kind of sex. Like, every time you masturbate. Because here's the other thing. I know a lot of us in the ways that our sexuality can become hijacked by harmful programs in our societies and in our cultures and in our families. That's not even including the intergenerational trauma that happens and all the programming that happens in there, right? We have a lot of unlearning to do, a lot of deprogramming to do, and there's a lot of ways in which harm and violence perpetuates itself in sexuality just because we don't have the tools to deeply listen to each other and to slow down enough that we're able to honor our own limits and our partner's limits, right? Because imagine in yourself, right? If the first 1, 2, maybe even 3 impulses that come up in your body, your organism, aren't genuine, what are the chances that that's probably happening to your partner too? That maybe the first 1, 2, or 3 things that they offer or initiate aren't what they really wanted either. And maybe it's your nervousness and your awkwardness that are allowing a really poorly communicated, not really satisfying at all to anybody experience to take place, which is, at best, maybe lackluster, and at worst, maybe actually traumatic because somebody gets frozen and feels like they are not able to consent, right? These are where this is where violence happens and can be perpetuated. Now, is this the end-all be-all for rape culture? Is this the vaccine, the antidote? Of course not. But is this a great foundation for how to develop healthy sexual practices and sovereignty in your own being, which will encourage and allow for the other people that you're intimate with to be genuinely sovereign and autonomous and to meet you in a fully consensual exchange? That should be possible for everybody. And it's not something that we're going to learn in school. It's not something that we're going to be able to get from Pornhub or Google, right? These are things that require actual commitment, dedication, continued learning. And as somebody who's been on this journey for most of their life, as a queer person who has been closeted a lot of their life, and as someone who is trauma informed and is really passionate about finding ways for people to reclaim safety and get back into their body and to befriend their organism, like to get into this body and be a partner to your organism. I have spent a lot of time and energy aggregating all of these resources and collecting all of this information and doing these studies both independently and in groups, right? When I was running these workshops online and such. And pre-pandemic, I had been organizing some in-person tantric workshops, and we're not quite ready to get back into that wavelength yet. And I know that a couple of you who have taken these courses are wanting some opportunities to experiment with them. And I am testing out. This May is going to be the first group gathering to experiment and to start seeing if we can go towards some safety of in-person events, some organizing in outdoor spaces around these embodiment practices, around these boundary setting practices, around consent, around mutual learning and growth, and respect and autonomy. So I am, as you know, I always teach nude yoga for erotic embodiment. This is never a practice that is masturbatory in nature. You might masturbate afterwards. It's fine and dandy. You might feel really great and you might feel like you want to go do that in the middle of it, but of course it's not appropriate, so we don't. But these practices, like, why do I call it erotic embodiment? Because we are practicing the number one thing that was on my tips for better sex and being a better lover, which is to slow the fuck down. Like, slow the fuck down. Like, no, I'm not even kidding. Like, however slow you think you need to go, like, cut that in half and then cut it in half again. And then 30 seconds later, cut it in half again because you'll have already sped up. It's so ingrained in us to just motor forward and allow momentum to carry us. But momentum displaces intention. And what we want is to slow things down to the point where every single action, every word, every touch, every sense is completely engaged, is fully aware, is really honed in, tuned into where you are, what you're doing right now, who you are right now, who your partner is right now, right? And in that way, we make space for each other to show up completely. That way, no one's agreeing to something they don't really want. No one is being codependent and agreeing with something just because they want affection, right? You can get affection and have your boundaries met. We don't have to compromise in these ways. And when we are slow enough and brave enough to be intentional about what we want, what we like, what we desire, we're able to meet each other in this way. So, May 16th is a Sunday. The Saturday before that is the Going Beyond the Lens live event online, so hopefully I will be spending time connecting with all of y'all there. And then the next day I will be taking a trip to Gunnison Beach, which is a nude beach in New Jersey, and we will be doing a full day extravaganza. So from about 10 to 10:30, we'll begin with some circling, everyone arriving, getting into the space. We'll go off together to a part of the beach that is less populated so that there's nobody who's just like, oh, I'm going to be nosy and show up without buying a ticket. Don't do that because I will notice. You can't pull one over on an empath. Like, don't be skulking. Come into the group, be mutually vulnerable with everybody, or don't come because we're not doing voyeurism. I ain't having it. All that to say, we're going to work on creating a sense of cohesion as a group. We're going to work on showing up authentically. We're going to work on feeling into our authentic eroticism as individual bodies, which does not mean anything sexual is happening. That is incorrect. We are going to be focusing very deeply on, God, I hate telemarketers so much, interrupting shit. We are going to be focusing super deeply on breath work, on making sounds together, on group movement, on synchronizing our energies, on getting really grounded into the body. And then we're going to stop at about 12 o'clock. We'll do, an hour and a half of movement that's guided and more traditional things. Like if you've come to my yoga classes, all of those slower, free-form movements that are really just about getting you into your senses and waking those senses up. And then we'll stop, we'll do a little, snacks, fruits, all different kinds of stuff. We'll have an opportunity to, maybe you want to bring an instrument. Maybe you want to sing together. Maybe you want to dance together. Maybe you want to whatever. We're going to have lots of room to be super spread out. You can wear a mask if that makes you feel comfortable. I'll probably have a bandana on because I think they're sexy. And, what else? Oh yeah, and then at the end, because this is a no cell phone event. Any nude event that I've ever done, you got to leave your cell phones in your cars. That's why it's important to get there on time because you won't be able to find us if you come late. Frankly, because you won't be able to call me. I won't have my phone, right? So we don't have any phones in the room or in the space because it is of the utmost importance that we are present, that we are not feeling the need to be vigilant, that we can build a sense of trust and safety in the group. So for the duration of our movement practice, there will be no cell phones, no nothing, da 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 da. Then we'll have a little bit more after our lunch break. We'll have an opportunity to circle back up and do some movement or music or drums or whatever instruments, things that people feel good about. I will bring speakers if we want to just dance, and I have a playlist set up, of course, because y'all know I'm a dance freak. Bring your own playlist too if there's things you want to suggest. And then at the very end, right around sunset, when golden hour begins on the beach, I'm going to be there all day. We're going to be there from 10 o'clock in the morning until 6 o'clock hanging out. You don't have to stay for the whole event, of course. If you want to, you are welcome. And at the very end, we will have the opportunity to do some group shooting. This is something that was the core of most of my workshops pre-pandemic, because we have to keep different distances depending on who's vaccinated, who's at risk, and how people feel. This is definitely going to be different than most of the group shoots I've organized in the past. I am allowing up to 3 photographers to come. That means not photographers coming separately. It means if you are a yogi or you are an artist coming to participate in this full day of events and you would like to be considered as a photographer, you would send me an application through email, which means your name, why you would like to photograph, and a link to your portfolio. This is not an opportunity that is open to amateurs, people who are cisgendered and heterosexual, and cisgendered heterosexual men specifically. We are focusing on the queer, trans, and femme gaze only, which means that if you don't want to be photographed, you will have the opportunity to leave prior to the group photo session. I will let everybody know when we are going back to the cars to get the cameras, when we intend to get set up, where we will be set up, and what types of things we will be playing with. We are working within everybody's boundaries. Everybody that is photographed must be credited appropriately, even if it is as anonymous. There will be no, if you come and photographs are taken of you, you will get copies of those photographs. So please don't apply as a photographer unless you are prepared to release the images to the group, for this is a group thing. We all own these images. They're something that are owned by all of us. We're not going by the traditional laws of photography where the photographer owns everything. The parameters, if you decide that you want to participate in this group shoot, is that you must be someone with experience, meaning you know how to work your own camera, you have a portfolio of images that you can show me, you're not cisgendered and heterosexual, so you have other experiences and you're coming from a different perspective. Why is that important? Because these are the people who have the imagination that is farthest from the white supremacy, cisgendered, compulsive, heterosexual, patriarchy, capitalist, right? Like, how do we get free? Our freedoms are contagious. That means it's super important to be learning from queer, trans, and femme people. The people that we marginalize the most are the people that have the perspectives that we need to listen to in order to access the healing that is necessary for the entire group, which means that we uplift and give positions of power to the people that have been marginalized. If you're a person of color and you're also queer or trans or femme, I would love for you to be the photographer that day. If we do not have enough volunteers of that criteria, then I will end up filling one of these spots. But that's all I have for you. So yeah, please only apply if you genuinely fall in that category. I don't want to have to call you out. And yeah, I want this to be a super affirming, beautiful, super yummy, sensual experience for everybody. I have, out of 6 or 7 years of hosting live events, both in public places and in not public places, I've only ever had to set a hard boundary about twice out of oh my God, I can't even tell you how many dozens and dozens and dozens of events. Please do not make me call you in for community accountability. If you are applying to get a ticket, please read through the community agreements, because I am 100% serious in upholding them. There will be people that I invite as appointed angels to be vigilant meaning you won't necessarily like know who they are beforehand, but at the beginning of the group, I'm going to indicate to everybody who's taking an angel position as a guardian of the space, which means that me, myself, I'll be one of them. And then there will be a handful of other people that to the outside world, nobody knows. They just look like a normal person, like in the group with us, but that they are sort of taking shifts in being vigilant and watching. And if there is somebody who is breaking any of the rules, I mean, you will be called out and called in a super public way. I am super kind and I leave a lot of room for us to learn and grow together. Misunderstandings happen. I understand that not all of us have English as a first language. So if there's questions that you have about the community agreements or the rules or what is expected of you, please ask me. You can send me a DM or an email. I always respond. I've never not responded to somebody who sent me a personal question, even when it's a voice message. I love hearing from you, and I want to make sure that everybody feels really confident and safe and protected in showing up for this experience. I want you to be able to drop into your body. And of course, when we go into meditation or when we go into an altered state of consciousness, we're not necessarily leaving our bodies, right? But it is important to set up the structure to protect us. And so as the facilitator, I can't ever guarantee a completely safe space, right? But I can say these are the parameters within which we can be brave and protect each other together. That being said, there are all kinds of legal disclaimers on there, right? It is illegal to photograph somebody without their knowledge or consent. I don't care what journalistic photography has made you think or what poor versions of anthropology and the photographers who have perpetuated that have done in the past or historically. It is violence. We will not allow it. There is no space for that here, period. Okay, which means that I will ruthlessly defend you if somebody takes any actions that are against these agreements. That also means that if you have things that would make you feel safe that aren't in these parameters that you would like me to voice, you can contact me and let me know. I am always building the community agreements to fit the needs of the space. And depending on where I am and the group that I'm bringing, things can shift and change, right? And I want every single person to feel confident in participating in the safety of the group as a whole, which means that we're all to be held accountable. If I say or do something that made you feel uncomfortable or made you sad or hurt your feelings or seemed like it was harmful, I fully expect you to talk to me about it, whether that's in the moment or if it's afterward in a private way. You know, whichever feels best to you. I am not afraid of being called out in the moment and addressing something and being accountable to it right then and there. If I use a word or I say something or I describe something that doesn't match your lived experience or that you disagree with, please, by all means. I mean, even in my yoga classes, I'm like, these are invitations. I'm going to cue you through a bunch of things, but if at any point you don't want to do them, you say fuck it and you say no. You ask me for a different option or you make up your own. It ain't really that serious, right? This is not a college degree. We're here to get you into your body and to participate in a primal, somatic way of absorbing information and experience, which means that everybody is autonomous and held responsible for their emotions and actions in the group. And that also means that everybody is equally able to have power in crafting their experience and controlling what level of involvement that they want to have. So that means taking care of yourself is key. You don't have to ask permission to go get water, to go to the restroom, all that kind of stuff. I super hope that I will get to see some of your faces here. I know that our online nude yoga community has really grown and that a lot of you are tuning in from all over the world. I mean, like just last week we had India, Prague, the UK, Canada, California, and like a couple other places that I was like, damn, there are freaks all over this planet. It feels so good to know that. Even if you are in a place where you feel so small, like there's nobody else like you anywhere around, there are others like you, even if they're far away. And I will not be offering any online version for this nude yoga field trip. But of course, there's still 3 classes a month. And thanks to the encore from my Dance Euphoria group, we'll be doing the ecstatic dance live as well, at least once a month. So these are always collaborative playlists. You can add songs that make you feel like moving. You can request things. You can have your camera off or on. Like everything else, these live nude events are never ever recorded. They are not permitted to have any cell phones even. So for the duration of our hangout at the beach, I am going to ask that all cameras, cell phones, or other recording devices are in the car or on airplane mode where they can't function. And depending on the level of trust, meaning are you someone I personally know who will abide by those rules? Like there may be the few people who are angels may be permitted to still have their cell phone, right? Because they may need to contact and document incidents as they occur. So we will go all over all of that in the beginning of the event to make sure that everybody is familiar with who's here, who's playing what roles, whose permissions are what, and how we feel about all of that. And again, if you don't want to participate in the group shoot, you will be invited to leave before we go and get the cameras and even begin to start setting up for that. It will be about sunset. It will be after a whole day of playing and having fun with each other. Only the beginning part will be structured. And then from our break for our fruit and snack share, from that point on, it's going to be very free form. I will have ingredients for fun and ingredients for these different activities. And you're welcome to bring them as well. Like if you have instruments, or dance toys, fire toys, like whatever you want to play with, hoops. I don't know. I can't hula hoop for shit, but if you're good at it, let's get it. Come show off, be affirmed, give each other compliments. Like that's really the purpose of this, is forming some intentional community where we have a sense of safety, a sense of bravery, a sense of clarity around the social scripts that we're navigating, and making connections seamless within that space, right? Connecting to the self and the body super deeply and connecting in community as well. If you don't feel like having a community experience, you're also, of course, permitted to leave after the nude yoga portion of the event. What else? That's it. There's a link in my bio. There's going to be a link in the notes when I post this to YouTube. And yeah, you're super loved. You're so valuable. You deserve to have super fulfilling experiences. You deserve to have your boundaries honored and celebrated. You deserve to exist in a space where you can give generously because your boundaries are never called into question, because your concept of safety is clearly understood and you're around other people who honor that. These are things that we don't always have access to. And I trust myself to curate this experience for y'all, to gatekeep people who would cause disruptions. And I don't want to invite or imply that there's likely to be any kerfluffles. Most people, really, truly, I know I seem small and non-threatening and super nice and kind, and it's because I am. I'm like so full of love you can't even imagine. But when it comes to protecting the people I care about, which includes you, the mother bear comes out, and I can be a absolutely terrifyingly ruthless human. That's not to imply that violence only happens to people who are intimidating. That's not to imply that violence can't happen if you are an intimidating person or that it has anything to do with how you look. This is just to say that I feel confident in my ability to meet whatever is likely to occur with the support of my trusted angels and guardians present. And I mean that in a spiritual, ancestral sense, but I also mean in the actual people I trust who I am bringing and appointing for these purposes, right? To help us maintain this community container. I trust in that ability. And I really deeply appreciate you trusting me to prepare this event for us and to experience this with all of us. If it goes well, I would really like to start organizing naked hikes and different things like that that are a little bit more risky, because we'll have to find areas where the legality allows for that, unless y'all want to take a trip to Maine, which I love Maine because you can be naked anywhere and nobody cares. Best state. Truly best state. Anyway, that's all I have for you. I hope y'all enjoyed this little sneak peek into why I'm teaching these things. Why does it matter? Why did I just make a reel about how to have better sex? Why do I care about what sex you're having? Because I do. Because I do. Because honestly, nobody cared about the sex I was having and the quality of my intimacies, and it resulted in a decade of crippling depression and so much loneliness. So, I really don't want you to ever have to experience that. I don't want you to have to work so hard to get the resources that you need to figure out how to be together in connection without harm, and to be in connection with a feeling of safety, and to be in connection and be sovereign, and to be fully in your consent, fully able to choose. That's what I want for you. That's what I want for everybody. That's what I wanted for myself 10 years ago. And if I'm being honest, the way that I teach is really just, I'm trying to offer what I needed that I couldn't find. Like, what is everything that has healed me that I had to work and had to pay and had to dedicate myself to this excruciating, process of extracting out of the world what is true. I already did all that. I already did that. Please profit off. Please use my effort. Please get in there and make my effort worth more than saving just me. Like, is it worth doing if I was the only person that was saved? Of course. But I really want to see y'all get saved too. Save your damn selves. We don't have to live in performance. We can be authentic people. The real you is lovable. 100%. 100,000%. Please come get loved. Come get affirmed. Come get some nice affection. Get some good compliments that aren't even about your body, that are literally about your energy. Come get your aura affirmed. Come get a nice, beautiful, sealed, protective moment of connection and community. I hope that you make some friends that you keep forever. For real. I know a lot of us, our sense of community has been fucked by COVID. Totally obliterated. Let's reform it intentionally. We can do it. We can do it together. I'm super excited to gift these experiences to y'all and to share in these experiences with y'all, because you teach me as much as I teach you. I'm still learning from every single student. Every single time that you tell me, hey, this isn't working, can we try and find something that suits me better, that meets me better? You're teaching me how to be a better teacher, which is why nothing I do is ever scripted. I don't know if anybody's ever noticed that. Is everything I do improv? Yes. Yes, it is. Why? Because if I actually know what the fuck I'm talking about, I should be able to change the way I'm teaching for any audience like that. Because I should be able to. I want to be able to. If I can only teach a small subset of people that can only hear things in the way that I automatically also hear things, then that's not a good teacher. That's an autodidact. That's someone who likes to learn alone. I'm the type of person who prefers learning in community, which means that I'm okay being wrong. I'm okay speaking without having rehearsed and writing out all of my responses, because I trust the knowledge and the wisdom that I have embodied to rise to the occasion of whoever is in need and whoever is present. And this skill that I'm describing of being able to resonate with whoever is present with you is a skill you get from slowing down. Is also one of the key foundational principles to being a good lover and having a satisfying intimate experience. This ability to come into emotional resonance. That's it. It's just the ability to sync up, to drop in together. And when I talk about erotic embodiment, that's what I mean. I mean dropping in completely, being a sensual, alive being. No performance. Just conscious, intentional choice. So much presence that you are able to feel and take pleasure out of everything. I want you to get to a place where just the skin, the sun shining on your skin, you can feel it at a cellular level. Like you can feel the light hitting every electron in every piece of every organ all over your whole body. I want to make you feel so safe that you are able to capture pleasure out of any part of the body, out of any sense. I mean, people think I'm crazy now because it's like I'm so deep into this pleasure practice, y'all. Like I go out to eat and before the waiter comes And I mean, I've gone on to eat like one whole time since COVID happened, right? The waiter comes and they're like, here's your food. And I'm like, and they're looking at me like, what the fuck are you doing? I'm smelling. I am taking sensual pleasure in this meal that I didn't have to cook. I haven't done this in so long that every single morsel and every nuance and every second of this experience, I am going to milk for the utmost pleasure. Literally. And now I could metabolize anything. This is like, seriously, like your body, your pleasure, your eroticism is like mushrooms. It's like the beauty of mycelium and how amazing mushrooms are. Because what can mushrooms do? They can feast on anything. They can take energy and sustenance out of anything. You starve a mushroom and they can get so hungry that they will metabolize plastics and man-made materials that have a half-life of like 1 billion years. Like shit that was indestructible, you give it to a hungry mushroom and they're like, I'm eating it. I can take energy from this. Oh, what is this? I can take energy from that too. Oh, there's nothing I can't actually get energy or pleasure from. I can take life from anything. I can metabolize anything. That is the power of mushrooms. And don't believe me? Go start doing research on mushrooms. They have so many genders. It's the gayest thing you've ever heard in your life. Please. This is a skill you can learn. I mean, rope is the same thing, right? Like, that looks like it hurts. Does it? Yes. Am I experiencing pleasure at the same time? Yes. As somebody who experiences chronic pain, if I wasn't able to metabolize pain into pleasure, I would never be able to have an orgasm ever. Because there's pretty much never a time where I'm not experiencing pain in my body. That might be different for you. You might never have experienced a lot of pain. You might live pain-free all the time. That doesn't mean that you're not living with like other things that hijack your desire and sort of like confuse it or distract you from what you really could be harvesting, which is anything you want. Genuinely, anything you want. There is a book called Existential Kink that goes into this at a greater depth. And if you're like, I am at the level where I'm already curious about this, or you want to sort of get some basics down and you want to start with what is the, reading list that I gave to the very first sexual sovereignty class, all of that is at the book club link in my bio on my website. I have all this information for you all the time. I update that about once a month with new books and new resources that are aligned with either the evolution of queerness, transness, sexuality, and identity, and how you navigate identity and attraction, as well as for intimacy, trauma healing, and erotic embodiment. So they're parsed out into different lists depending on what you want to learn. I'm basically just trying to be like the super gay sex witch that I really, really wanted to have as a child growing up that I didn't get. And we're going to play with making our eroticism wholesome. That's really what is possible when you realize that pleasure is a wholesome and innocent experience. And when you reclaim that innocence and you reclaim your sensual nature, you can take pleasure out of anything and not be embarrassed. And not be humiliated. And not feel like you have anything to apologize for. And other people will thank you. Seriously. I feel like every time I'm intimate with somebody at this point, it's sort of like a free training class for them. And I'm like, this is fun and all, but Lord, do I wish that I had a selection of human beings to be fucking with that came pre-trained, you know? So is my desire to educate the entire globe a little bit selfish because I would like to have a wider pool of people that are actually ready to be dating? Yeah, a little bit is that. Because those of us who have done work on our sexuality and our eroticism and our authentic self are really disappointed when we end up like getting with somebody who hasn't done that kind of work, because it shows. It shows in the way that you ignore our nuances, in the way that you stereotype, in the way that you make assumptions, in the way that you proceed from and by and along social scripts like really intensely, the way that gender presents itself really intensely, and the way that harm occurs and the responsibility isn't taken for it. right? All of these things, it's not you're an evil person if you've ever like caused harm or anything, right? No, it's just a lack of information. It's just a lack of knowledge. Nobody educated you in a way that allowed you to have the information you needed. So, come get the information you need. Come get the information you deserve. I said I was going to stop talking 15 minutes ago. So that's it. I'm done. The links are in my bio, are in the show notes. Go get them. They're for you. I do this for you. All of it. Seriously, all of it's for you. All of it's for you. If I'm being honest, I still make the most of my money from making custom videos, authentic pornography, because I don't know if you've ever actually watched porn of somebody who was having genuine pleasure. Honestly, you probably haven't. I gotta be honest with you, like, that's gonna hurt. You're gonna be like, ow! But, like, it's really true. Like, most porn is coercive, is not real. And if you've ever had a friend that's a porn star, it's so fake. I actually have never met anybody other than me who's like, yeah, I only do real porn. I don't fake anything. I refuse. Is it easier? Yeah. Would I make more money? Definitely. Do the cisgendered heterosexual men who make up the large buying portion of that market, do they want me to continue to just lie to them and perform? Yes. But actually, no. Because actually, that's what hurts men, right? When you're ingesting and consuming things that are fake and are not real interactions between people, and it's not a demonstration of intimacy at all. In fact, it's often a demonstration of violence, rape culture, if not an actual fucking assault, dude. Like, literally, if it is free on the internet, if it's free, somebody's being exploited. If you didn't pay for it, somebody's being exploited and it's being stolen. How can you come from that? Seriously. And if you are coming from that, can you just think a minute about what it might do to you energetically to be aligning yourself with something that someone was only doing for survival in a coercive setting? What if you knew that most of the people doing these things got into it 9 times out of 10 when it's some kind of extreme fetish thing and it's free? It's a situation where the person was coerced in and then was told that they wouldn't get the money unless they finished the scene. Which means the consent they gave was empty, was not consent. Can I say it again? That is not consent. That is not sex. If anything, it is a disgusting way of packaging rape culture to give you the illusion that sexual interactions can or should be this way. I can't even begin to express. Are there some good sex out there? Yes. 4-chambered heart, kick ass, so good. What is the, there's a couple of, Crash Pad, Indie Porn Revolution. There are some places, organizations that are like, we don't want to fake this anymore. We want it to be real. We want it to be consensual. We want real intimacy. Yes. Source those out, for real. If you're going to engage in porn, source it from people that are being paid for their time. I just started sweating. Like, that's how much I care about this. That's how very serious I am. Oh, my rat tail came down. Yeah, it's because I care about you and I care about your consciousness, and everything that you consume affects your imagination, affects the way that you perceive the world. And so I'm not shaming content creators. I am not shaming pornographers. I'm not shaming anybody except for the people who perpetuate exploitation of sex workers. You suck. And if you're consuming porn that you know is rape or rape culture, you are dealing with some serious fucking trauma. Go to therapy. Do not touch anybody. Don't even touch yourself. Like, stop masturbating. Because if you're in that mindset, you are self-harming, even in the way that you masturbate. I guarantee it. How can that happen? It can happen. Trust me. There will be more videos on that later, because that's a whole thing. We can come to a place where our expression of our sexuality is divine and is another facet of our divinity. And I want to see us walk each other home in that way. I don't want to demonize and blame people. I just want to give us the tools and the resources and the information to make better choices, to keep each other safer, to keep ourselves safer, and to understand with clarity what we actually want. Because you don't have to be ashamed about it. Guarantee that the one thing that you think that you want more than like anything else in the world that is like totally gross or disgusting that nobody else would ever want, it's not gross, it's not disgusting, and there's nothing that can't be done consensually in a healthy way when you are aware and you are doing the work to investigate and make sure that it is not a hijacked desire. It is an authentic desire. That's all I have for you. I super hope to see y'all either at the online nude yoga events or at the field trip. And if you have any questions, please remember, feel free to contact me. I'm never going to tell you it's a silly, dumb question. You can also let me know if you disagree with something that I've said on this, or you think my information is false, or you think I'm missing some, I'm missing some areas, et cetera, et cetera. Sam asks, how you so slim? Did I mention I teach yoga? I don't work out. This is like the only thing I do. Also, please don't ever think that thinness is a measure of someone's health or that fatness is a measure of somebody's health. It's not. I live with cyclical vomiting, Ehlers-Danlos, and other conditions that keep my weight at a static spot. I haven't gained a single pound since I was in 4th grade. This is not intentional. It's my disease. So like whether or not I look muscular has to do with whether or not I've been dancing and doing yoga lately. But my thinness, my slim body type is a genetic sort of like stereotype that I am stuck with. It's not stereotype, but template that I'm working with on a cellular level. That's it. So on that note, I just want to encourage everybody to please show up. Please do not come because you think that you need a beach body to come, or don't tell me that you want to come but you're afraid because you have a belly, or what. Like literally every single yoga class that I teach always has some cueing around releasing your belly and snuggling that belly fat, giving a little cuddle, giving a little tickle, a little appreciation and affirmation to your belly. All your organs live in there. Stop sucking it in. Stop pretending it should be flat. It is full. It is full of you. It is full of the things that are essential to keeping you alive. So pop that shit out. It's cute as fuck. For real. Also, you can come with clothes on if you're embarrassed or you're not ready to be nude. You don't have to be nude. You can get dressed or undressed as you go. And thank you, Kelsey. I love that you spell your name Kelsey. You're awesome as well. I just want to have fun with y'all. I just want to make the community that we needed. I just want to help rehab us all, right? Like, I really truly feel like as much as I myself has been a victim of, the compulsive, cisgender, heterosexual, patriarchy versions and narratives of eroticism, crafting new narratives has served me so well. It's been such a powerful source of healing for me. And for those that I have witnessed healing and healing, I just want to keep making these things possible. So please come get this. It's for you. I love you. I love you so much. And you don't have to say it back. You know what? You don't. I'm not going to force you into that. Say it if you feel like it.